World Rugby Rankings as of Monday, the 8th of February. There's a few changes on the board. A couple of countries have shot up on recent results. A couple of countries have dropped, and there are some changes in the points in the background. My daughter is crying hysterically in the background, perhaps at the drop of England to number 3 with the All Blacks securing that second spot. Steve Foster. God, why do I always say Steve Foster? Ian Foster will he be pleased, or will he not really give 2 moments thought about these rankings? Anyway, these are the world rankings. I'll quickly go over them. We'll highlight the changes and have a quick look at what the potential ramifications are with the next round of the Six Nations, and see who could be moving up and who could be moving down. First is still your Springboks, man. It's a long time since they have played a game. I know there are some people who are pretty critical of them able to retain the number 1 spot, but they sure haven't been beaten since the 2019 Rugby World Cup final. They were due to play in the Rugby Championship last year, but it didn't end up working out, so we haven't seen them play for quite some time. If you've been following the Super Rugby Unlocked and the Currie Cup, the South African players have still been active, plus there's a bunch of them in Europe, so hopefully 2021 is the year we can see these guys back in action at some point, but they are miles away the number 1 team on the rankings, 94.2, and that ain't going to change until they play some games. So that's just the way the rankings work. New Zealand, like I mentioned, they benefit from England's loss. Obviously, their number hasn't changed because they didn't play any games, 88.95. But because England lost at home to Scotland, 11 points to 6, it means England dropped down to 87.49. As of the week before, they were on 89.49. So it's a bit of a significant drop with that loss. Drops them down to 3rd spot. And with the future fixtures on the cards, you've got England playing Italy. Even if England beat Italy by 1,000,000 points, it's not going to move them up the rankings, not even by 1 decimal point, because if you beat a team that's too far below you in the rankings, it means you don't get nothing. I've done a video on how the world rankings worked previously. If you are curious, if you actually want the nuts and bolts about the maths, go check out World Rugby's website. They give you the exact formulas if that's your thing. But basically, you get more points from beating teams around you or above you, but you don't get much for beating teams way below you or absolutely nothing. The French, they're in 4th. They are stable in that spot in 4th. And they haven't changed the jot. Like I mentioned, beating Italy doesn't tend to count for much, so 85.3. They are steady there. Ireland, 83.42. That is a drop from 84.65. So it does put them potentially within striking distance, maybe of Scotland. I think if Scotland were to get a big win in their next game and Ireland were to suffer a big loss, there's a potential for things to change about there. But likewise, Ireland could also jump France if they manage to win their next game. So we'll see how things go. It's still pretty tight between these teams. I think Ireland would need a big win to jump them. I don't think it's going to be like a 1-pointer or a 3-pointer will do the job. It would need to be a pretty big win. Australia's still there, 83.08. But Scotland's closed the gap a bit, 82.82. Scotland, prior to this game, were on 80.82, so that's a pretty big jump. Even if they haven't moved positions, they've certainly really closed that gap on Australia. And like I mentioned, if they get any win over Wales next week, they will jump that 6th spot. So look out, Dave Rennie and the Wallabies. Again, not that they're probably paying attention because they don't have any games for like 6 months. So anyway, for Wales, good news for them. Wayne Pivac gets his win. Wales move up to 80.59. Previously, they were 79.36. Seems like a bloody lifetime ago. They were right up this end of the board, But change of coach, some change in players, and Wales' fortunes in 2020 were not the best, to put it mildly, but maybe this is the start of a turnaround. We'll have to wait and see how things go. Wales could jump Scotland, actually, if they win that game. So it will be certainly one to watch this weekend. It's a really fascinating one, that Wales-Scotland game, but we'll wait till the teams are named before we have a proper look at that fixture. Argentina, again, haven't moved on the numbers, but they are down with Wales passing them. And all these teams, barring Georgia and Italy, well, Italy hasn't moved. That big loss to France hasn't moved them because Again, you don't usually lose any points for losing to a team so far above you. Tonga haven't played, Fiji haven't played, Japan haven't played, so they're all steady. Georgia did play. Georgia beat Russia 16 points to 7, but it's the same deal that Georgia are so far above Russia on the log that they don't get anything from that spot. One thing you'll notice, which is always an interesting one about the Rugby World Rankings, Georgia is above Italy. I know this probably sparks a bit more of that debate about Georgia replacing Italy in the Six Nations, which is not going to happen, not anytime soon. But it's another, maybe highlights the flaw of the World Rankings in that Italy regularly play teams on this half of the table and get beaten, so they don't get many chances to earn points, because even if they were to this week, lose to England by only 1 point, they would still gain absolutely nothing. You can't gain anything for a loss the way the World Rankings work, so it only credits wins. I think if England did lose to Italy, they might actually be able to drop below France. If France got a big one, there's a very small chance it's going to happen. But yeah, as bad as England's performance was at the weekend, I still don't think there's much chance of that happening. Professional sports are a funny thing, you never know. But yeah, I wouldn't be counting on anything there. Other results around, apart from the Six Nations and apart from Georgia and Russia, Spain did beat Portugal 25 points to 11. So Portugal still remain in 20th spot, but their score has gone down ever so slightly. Spain's has gone ever so slightly up. They are in 17th. If you want to know the countries on the other side, past the board, Samoa's 15, USA 16, Spain 17, like I mentioned, Uruguay 18. Romania actually got a default win over Belgium because Belgium's government didn't allow them to play. They didn't allow them to leave to go and play in Romania. So 28-0 default win for Romania on that one. That hasn't moved them. They're 19th, Portugal 20, Russia 21, Hong Kong 22, Canada 23, Namibia 24, and Netherlands 25, Brazil 26. There you go. Rugby World Rankings for February, what was it, the 8th? Updated every Monday. There's not always that many movers and shakers with the limited number of teams that tend to play, but it is always an interesting one to see how the results have changed things, especially for the teams that haven't been in action. So yeah, big win for the All Blacks at the weekend. Ian Foster, under his stewardship, they have moved up to second in the world. So congratulations to him. But yeah, what do you guys reckon? Do you think these rankings are pretty fair? Would you still back South Africa to be the number one team in the world? At the moment, it is so hard to say because we haven't seen them play in over a year. The All Blacks in their last campaign were not convincing. Are they the second best team in the world? England, likewise, at the weekend. And we do have this bad habit of kind of judging teams based on their most recent performance. Like, I don't think England have suddenly become a bad team based on that most recent performance, but people will bag them until they get another win. France are everybody's kind of favourite at the moment. Maybe they could potentially be top 3, top 2 even on current form. Don't know. Wales and Ireland, it's still kind of hard to see where they're at as well after their kind of ding-dong battle at the weekend. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you reckon about the rankings? Which ones do you think are a bit high? Which ones do you think are a bit low? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.